Please, just take her. I can't do this anymore." The man's voice cracked as he thrust the screaming infant toward the flight attendant. Row 14C erupted into chaos. A single father, face buried in his hands, shoulders shaking, his 8-month-old daughter's cries piercing through the cabin like daggers. Passengers glared. Someone muttered, "Control your kid." Another passenger slammed their tray table. Then a woman 4 rows back stood up. She didn't ask permission. She just walked straight to him, reached out, and took the crying baby from his trembling arms. But before we find out what happens next, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this. And drop a comment below. Where are you listening from right now? Now let me tell you how Logan Baker ended up on that flight, holding a baby he didn't know how to soothe, on the edge of complete breakdown. 3 months earlier, Logan Baker had a different life entirely. He worked as a software engineer for a tech startup in Seattle. Long hours, demanding projects, but good money, and a career he'd built from the ground up. His wife, Sarah, had been his college sweetheart. They'd married young, at 23, full of dreams about building a life together. Logan could still remember the day he met Sarah. It was sophomore year at University of Washington, a rainy October afternoon in the campus library. She'd been standing at the philosophy section, stretching on her toes to reach a book on the top shelf. Logan had walked over without thinking, grabbed the book for her, and handed it down. She'd looked at him with those bright green eyes and said, "My hero," with just enough sarcasm to make him laugh. They'd gone for coffee that same afternoon, talked for 4 hours straight. Logan had never met anyone like her. She quoted Nietzsche and loved indie rock, wore vintage band T-shirts, and could argue philosophy for hours without getting tired. She made him feel more alive than anyone he'd ever known. Their courtship was a whirlwind. Late-night study sessions that turned into breakfast dates. Weekend road trips to the coast. Sarah would drag him to underground music shows in basement venues, and Logan would introduce her to his favorite sci-fi films. They balanced each other. Where Logan was careful and methodical, Sarah was spontaneous and fearless. Where he planned every step, she leapt without looking. It worked. For years, it worked beautifully. They got engaged the summer after graduation. Logan had saved for months to buy a ring. Nothing fancy but meaningful. He proposed on the beach at sunset. Cliché, Sarah had teased him later, but she'd said yes through happy tears. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Sarah wore a simple white dress she'd found at a vintage shop. Logan wore his only suit. They honeymooned in Portland, spent their days exploring bookstores and coffee shops, spent their nights tangled together in a tiny Airbnb, making promises about the future. The first few years of marriage were good. Logan landed his job at the startup, worked his way up from junior developer to lead engineer. Sarah worked as a graphic designer for a marketing firm. They rented a small apartment in Capitol Hill, filled it with mismatched furniture from thrift stores and plants Sarah could never quite keep alive. They talked about buying a house someday, about traveling to Europe, about all the things they'd do together. When Sarah got pregnant, it was unplanned but welcome. She was 29, Logan was 30. They'd talked about kids eventually, but eventually had suddenly become now. Sarah seemed excited at first. She pinned nursery ideas on Pinterest, bought baby clothes on sale, talked about names. Logan dove into research, read every parenting book he could find, baby-proofed the apartment months early, set up the crib with obsessive attention to detail. But as Sarah's pregnancy progressed, something shifted. She became withdrawn, stopped talking about baby names, spent hours on the couch scrolling through her phone in silence. Logan chalked it up to pregnancy hormones, discomfort, normal stress. He tried to be supportive, took over cooking and cleaning, rubbed her feet when they swelled, went to every doctor's appointment and held her hand through each ultrasound. When Emma was born 8 months ago, Logan thought he'd finally figured out what happiness meant. Those first few weeks were golden, sleepless, exhausting, but golden. He'd hold Emma against his chest while Sarah slept, whispering promises about the life they'd give her. Soccer games and science fairs, road trips and movie nights, a house with a backyard, everything he never had growing up. Logan's own childhood had been fractured. His father left when he was 6, just packed a bag one morning and never came back. His mother, Rebecca, worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night. Logan and his younger brother Derek raised themselves more than they were raised, frozen dinners and afternoons alone. Rebecca did her best, but she was always tired, always stressed, always just barely holding it together. There was never much affection, never much warmth, just survival. Logan had promised himself his kids would have better. They'd have a father who was present, engaged, loving. They'd never feel alone. For the first 3 weeks after Emma's birth, Logan kept that promise. He took paternity leave from work, changed every diaper, did every night feeding so Sarah could rest. He walked Emma around the apartment at 3 in the morning when she wouldn't sleep, singing off-key lullabies and telling her about all the adventures they'd have together. He fell completely, utterly in love with his daughter. Every tiny yawn, every miniature fist wrapping around his finger, every moment felt like a miracle. But Sarah had always been restless. Logan knew that. It was one of the things he'd loved about her in college, her spontaneity, her refusal to settle, her constant search for something more. He'd thought marriage and motherhood would ground her. He'd been wrong. The cracks started small. Sarah would stare at Emma in the bassinet with an expression Logan couldn't read. Not love, not exactly. Something closer to confusion or fear. When Emma cried, Sarah would freeze, her face going pale, her hands trembling. Logan would rush in, take the baby, soothe her while Sarah retreated to the bedroom. "I just need a minute," she'd say. Then a minute became an hour. Then hours became half the day. 3 weeks after Emma's birth, Sarah started going for drives. Long drives, hours at a time, leaving Logan alone with the baby. "I need space," she'd say. "I just need to clear my head." Logan understood, or tried to. Postpartum was hard. Everyone said so. He picked up the slack, did the night feedings, the diaper changes, the doctor appointments. He went back to work after 4 weeks, but kept his phone on his desk at all times in case Sarah needed him. She called once, her voice tight with panic. "She won't stop crying. I don't know what to do." Logan left work early, came home to find Sarah in tears and Emma screaming in her crib. He took Emma, calmed her within minutes. Gas. Just gas. Sarah stared at him like he'd performed magic. By Emma's 2nd month, Sarah was barely interacting with the baby. She'd feed her when Logan couldn't, change her when necessary, but there was no warmth, no bonding, no smiles or coos or baby talk. Just mechanical care, like Emma was a task to complete rather than a person to love. Logan tried to talk to her about it. "Maybe you should see someone," he suggested gently. "Postpartum depression is real. There's no shame in getting help." Sarah had snapped at him. "I'm not depressed. I'm just tired. You wouldn't understand." But Logan was tired too. He was working full-time, coming home to take over all baby care, surviving on 4 hours of sleep a night. And he wasn't pulling away from Emma. He was falling more in love with her every day. By month 3, Sarah was gone more than she was home. She'd leave for drives that lasted 6, 7, 8 hours. Logan stopped asking where she went. He was too exhausted to fight. He hired a babysitter for when he had to be at the office. A college student named Maya, who was warm and capable and better with Emma than Sarah had ever been. Then came the Tuesday morning that changed everything. Logan woke at 7 to Emma's cries coming from the nursery. He stumbled out of bed, noticed Sarah's side was empty. Not unusual. She'd been sleeping on the couch lately, claiming Emma's nighttime cries kept her awake. But when Logan walked past the living room, the couch was empty too. He picked Emma up from her crib, changed her diaper, carried her to the kitchen to make a bottle. That's when he saw it. A piece of paper on the counter, folded once, Sarah's looping handwriting across the front. Logan. His hands shook as he unfolded it. I'm sorry. I can't be the person you need me to be. I can't be Emma's mother. I'm not built for this. Don't try to find me. Logan read it 3 times. 4, 5. The words didn't change. Emma squirmed in his arms, hungry and impatient. He made her bottle on autopilot, fed her while staring at the note on the counter. When Emma finished eating, Logan walked to the bedroom, opened Sarah's closet. Half her clothes were gone, her toiletries from the bathroom, gone. The duffel bag she kept in the back of the closet, gone. She'd planned this. While he slept, while their daughter slept, Sarah had packed her things and walked out of their lives. Logan stood in that bedroom for a long time, Emma on his hip, trying to understand. They'd been together for 10 years, married for 7. They'd built a life, and she just left. No conversation, no fight, no attempt to work through it. Just a note and an empty closet. He called her phone, straight to voicemail. He texted her. No response. He called her mother, her sister, her best friend from college. No one had heard from her, or if they had, they weren't telling him. For 3 days, Logan hoped she'd come back, that she'd just needed space and would walk through the door apologizing, ready to try again. But on the 4th day, he got an email from her. Short, clinical. She wanted a divorce. She'd already contacted a lawyer. She was waiving all parental rights. She wanted nothing from him, and she wanted nothing to do with Emma. Please respect my decision and don't contact me again. Logan stared at that email for hours. Respect her decision to abandon her child, to erase them from her life like they'd never existed. The first month alone was survival mode. Logan worked remotely when Emma napped, took video calls with her strapped to his chest in a carrier, survived on coffee and frozen meals. His boss, a woman named Jennifer who had 3 kids of her own, was understanding at first. Family emergency. Take the time you need, she'd said when Logan explained the situation. But deadlines didn't care about personal crises. Logan's job was demanding. He was lead engineer on a major project, a healthcare app launching in 3 months. His team depended on him. The client depended on him, but Emma depended on him more. He tried to balance everything. Wake up at 5, work for 2 hours before Emma woke, take care of her in the morning, squeeze in emails during her first nap, work furiously during her afternoon nap, stay up until midnight after she went to bed, coding until his eyes blurred. He was exhausted, constantly, bone-deep exhausted. Projects piled up. Logan's performance reviews started slipping. He missed meetings because Emma wouldn't stop crying. He submitted work late because she'd been up all night teething. He tried daycare, a bright, clean place with cheerful caregivers and educational toys. Emma screamed from the moment he dropped her off. They called him after 2 hours. She won't stop crying. We've tried everything. You need to come get her. Logan left work, drove across town, picked up his red-faced, hiccuping daughter. The daycare director suggested gently that maybe Emma wasn't ready. Maybe they should try again in a few months. But Logan couldn't wait months. He needed childcare now. He tried a different daycare, same result. Tried a nanny. Emma hated her, screamed whenever the woman came near. The nanny quit after 1 week. Logan's boss started sending concerned emails. Is everything okay? You've missed 3 deadlines this month." Logan wanted to scream. "No, everything is not okay. My wife abandoned us. I'm raising an infant alone. I haven't slept more than 4 hours in 6 weeks. I'm drowning." But he didn't say that. He said, "I'm handling it. It won't happen again." But it did happen again, and again. Then came the breaking point, a critical project deadline. The healthcare app was supposed to launch in 2 weeks. Logan's team needed him to finalize the back-end architecture, debug a series of critical issues, and push the final build to production. Logan had promised his team he'd deliver. He'd worked 3 nights in a row, catching sleep in 20-minute increments between Emma's wake-ups. She was going through a sleep regression, waking every hour and a half, sometimes every 45 minutes. Logan would get her back to sleep, stumble back to his laptop, code for 30 minutes, then hear her cries starting again. On the 4th night, Logan fell asleep at his laptop. He'd been debugging a particularly nasty issue, eyes burning with exhaustion. Just closed his eyes for a second. When he woke, pale morning light was streaming through the windows. His laptop screen was black. He checked his phone. 7 missed calls from Jennifer, 12 from his team members, 23 emails. The project had crashed during deployment. Something in Logan's code, a bug he hadn't caught because he'd fallen asleep before finishing the debug. The client's entire system had gone down. They were furious, threatening to pull the contract, threatening to sue for damages. Logan's boss called him into a Zoom meeting at 9 that morning. He sat there with Emma on his lap, her face sticky with breakfast, while Jennifer's face filled the screen. She looked tired, disappointed. "Logan, we need to talk." "I know. I'm sorry. I fell asleep. I'll fix it. I can fix it." "It's not just about this project," Jennifer said. "Your performance has been declining for 6 weeks. You've missed deadlines. You've been late to meetings or missed them entirely. Your code quality has dropped. We've been patient because we understand you're going through a difficult time, but we have a business to run." "I know. I'll do better. I just need—" "We're letting you go," Jennifer said, not unkindly, but firmly. "We understand you're dealing with a lot, but we need someone who can be reliable right now. We're offering you a severance package, 2 months' salary. That should give you time to find something else." Reliable. Logan wanted to laugh, wanted to cry, wanted to throw his laptop across the room. He'd given that company 4 years of 60-hour weeks, had shipped products ahead of schedule, had mentored junior developers, taken on extra projects, worked weekends and holidays. But 1 month of struggling with single parenthood, and he was unreliable. "I understand," Logan said, because what else could he say? The severance package was generous at least. 2 months' salary paid out in a lump sum, enough to cover rent and bills while he figured out his next move. But Logan's next move wasn't clear. He immediately started applying to other jobs. Updated his resume, reached out to former colleagues, scoured job boards. Every tech company wanted immediate availability, strong references, no red flags. Logan had a gap in his employment, a boss who'd fired him, and an 8-month-old who made full-time work nearly impossible. The interviews went well at first. Logan was talented, experienced, well-spoken. But then came the inevitable question: can you start immediately? We need someone who can hit the ground running. "I have an 8-month-old daughter," Logan would explain. "I'm a single parent. I'd need to arrange childcare, but yes, I can start within a couple weeks." The interviewers would nod, smile politely. "We'll be in touch." Then came the rejection emails. "Thank you for your interest, but we've decided to pursue other candidates. You're a strong candidate, but we're looking for someone with more immediate availability. We'll keep your resume on file for future opportunities." Future opportunities. Logan needed an opportunity now. One interviewer was more honest than the rest. A hiring manager at a mid-sized company, a guy around Logan's age who'd conducted the third-round interview. After the formal questions were done, he'd said, "Can I give you some advice, off the record?" "Sure," Logan said, desperate for any insight. "Don't mention you're a single parent in interviews. I know that's probably illegal to say, but it's the truth. The moment you mention a baby, interviewers start worrying about reliability. They worry you'll miss work for daycare emergencies. They worry you won't be able to work late when needed. They won't say it out loud, but it's there. So just leave it out. Say you can start immediately. Figure out childcare after you get the offer." Logan had thanked him, hung up, stared at his laptop screen. He was being discriminated against for being a parent, for doing exactly what society said men should do: step up, take care of his kid. But apparently, stepping up meant becoming unhireable. By month 2 after losing his job, Logan's savings were running thin. He'd burned through the severance faster than expected. Emma needed formula, diapers, wipes. She'd had an ear infection that wouldn't clear up, required 3 doctor visits and 2 rounds of antibiotics. The rent was due in a week, $1,800, and Logan's bank account had $2,000 left. After rent, he'd have $200. That wouldn't even cover groceries for the month, let alone Emma's needs. Logan sat on his apartment floor at 2 in the morning, Emma finally asleep in his arms, and did the math over and over. He could break the lease, pay the penalty fee, move somewhere cheaper, but moving cost money he didn't have. He could apply for assistance programs, but he'd have to navigate bureaucracy while caring for an infant. He could borrow money from family, but his mother was barely scraping by herself, and his brother Derek had student loans and a mortgage. He was out of options. That's when Derek called from Minneapolis. "Hey, man, Mom's been asking about you, about Emma. She wants to see her granddaughter." Logan leaned his head back against the couch. "I know. I've just been busy." Busy or drowning? Logan's throat tightened. Both. "Mom wants you to come stay with her," Derek said. "She's got the spare bedroom. She could help with Emma. Give you some time to figure things out." "I can't ask her to do that." "You're not asking, she's offering." Logan hadn't been back to Minnesota in 3 years, hadn't spoken to his mother in 6 months. Their relationship had always been complicated. Rebecca Baker had done her best raising 2 boys alone, but her best had left scars. She was distant, emotionally unavailable, more concerned with paying bills than emotional connection. Logan had spent his childhood feeling like a burden, like one more problem his mother had to solve. Moving back into her house at 32 felt like admitting defeat. But what choice did he have? "Okay," Logan said finally. "I'll come." He broke his lease, paid the penalty, packed everything he and Emma owned into boxes, sold his car to cover the last month's rent and the moving costs, booked the cheapest flight he could find, one-way ticket to Minneapolis, leaving Tuesday morning at 8. The night before the flight, Logan sat in his empty apartment surrounded by boxes and felt the full weight of his failure. A year ago, he'd had a wife, a job, a home, a future. Now he had a baby, a suitcase, and a one-way ticket to his mother's house. He was 32 years old and moving back home. How had everything fallen apart so completely? Emma stirred in her portable crib, and Logan went to her, picked her up, held her close. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry I can't give you the life I promised. I'm sorry your mom left. I'm sorry we're starting over, but I promise I'll figure this out. I promise I won't give up." Emma grabbed his finger and yawned, too young to understand promises, too young to know how badly her father felt like he was failing. The next morning, Logan took a rideshare to the airport. The driver, a middle-aged woman named Rosa, helped him unload his bags and car seat at departures. "Good luck, honey," she said, looking at Emma with a warm smile. "You're doing great." Logan wanted to believe her, Security was a nightmare. Emma screamed through the metal detector. Logan had to take her out of the carrier, collapse the stroller, remove his shoes, his belt, pull out his laptop, all while holding a wriggling, crying infant. The TSA agent looked annoyed. The passengers behind him sighed loudly. One man muttered, "Some people shouldn't travel with babies." By the time Logan reached the gate, he was sweating through his shirt, his hands shaking from stress and exhaustion. Emma had finally fallen asleep in his arms, her little fist curled against his chest. Logan sat in a chair near the boarding area and closed his eyes. Just for a moment, just to breathe. He woke to the final boarding call. Somehow he'd dozed off. Panic jolted him awake. He grabbed everything, diaper bag, stroller, car seat, and rushed to the gate. The gate agent, a young woman with kind eyes, waved him through. "You're the last one, but you made it. Go ahead." The flight was packed, every seat filled. Logan's seat, 14C, middle row, was sandwiched between a businessman in a suit who was already typing furiously on his laptop and an elderly woman knitting something that looked like a scarf. Neither looked thrilled when Logan approached with a baby. "Sorry," Logan mumbled, struggling to hoist the diaper bag into the overhead compartment. "We'll try to keep quiet." The businessman didn't look up. The elderly woman gave him a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Logan sat down, Emma still asleep against his chest. Maybe this would be okay. Maybe she'd sleep the whole flight. Maybe, for once, something would go smoothly. Emma woke up 20 minutes into the flight, and she was not happy. It started with fussing, little unhappy sounds. Logan tried her pacifier. She spit it out. Tried rocking her gently. She cried harder. Tried a bottle. She turned her head away, her face scrunching up, turning red. The businessman next to him put in noise-cancelling headphones. The elderly woman shot him a look that clearly said, "Control your child." Logan's hands were shaking. He stood up, careful not to hit his head on the overhead compartment, and walked Emma up and down the narrow aisle, bounced her gently, whispered, "Please, baby, please. It's okay. Daddy's here. I've got you." But nothing worked. Emma's cries escalated, growing louder, more desperate. A few passengers turned to stare. One woman actually glared at him. Logan returned to his seat, humiliation burning in his chest. He tried the bottle again. Emma refused, thrashing in his arms. He tried singing softly, a lullaby Sarah used to hum back when Sarah still cared. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." His voice cracked. Emma screamed louder. The businessman beside him let out an audible sigh and closed his laptop. The elderly woman pursed her lips and focused very hard on her knitting. Logan felt every eye in the cabin on him, judging, annoyed, frustrated. A flight attendant approached with a professionally sympathetic smile. "Sir, is there anything we can do to help?" "I don't know," Logan said, and his voice broke. "I don't. She won't stop. I've tried everything." The flight attendant nodded, but what could she really do? This wasn't her problem. This was his baby, his responsibility. And he was failing, publicly, spectacularly failing. Another 15 minutes passed. Emma screamed without pause, her little face bright red, tears streaming down her cheeks. Logan tried everything again. Pacifier, bottle, rocking, singing, walking. Nothing worked. His vision started to blur. His chest felt tight. He couldn't breathe. The cabin walls seemed to close in. Every passenger's stare felt like a knife. Somewhere in the back of the plane, someone said loudly, "Can someone please make that baby shut up?" Logan's composure shattered. He looked at the flight attendant standing a few feet away and heard himself say words he'd never imagined he'd speak. Words that seemed to come from someone else entirely. "Please, just take her. I can't do this anymore." He held Emma out toward the flight attendant, his hands trembling. tears streaming down his face. The attendant looked shocked, uncertain. "Sir, I can't," Logan choked out. "I can't do this. I don't know what she needs. I don't know how to make it stop. I'm a terrible father. I can't. Please." And then, from 4 rows back, a woman stood up. She didn't hesitate, didn't ask permission. She just walked straight down the aisle, her movements calm and purposeful, and gently took Emma from Logan's trembling arms. Logan looked up at her through a blur of tears. She was maybe 34, 35, with long dark brown hair pulled into a loose ponytail and warm hazel eyes that held no judgment, only kindness. She wore a simple grey sweater and jeans. There was something steady about her, something that made Logan feel like maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. She cradled Emma against her shoulder, adjusting her hold with practiced ease, and started swaying, gentle, rhythmic movements. Then she did something unexpected. She pressed her cheek against Emma's little head and started humming. Not a lullaby, not a nursery rhyme, just a low, soothing hum, steady and calming. Her hand rubbed slow circles on Emma's back. Slowly, impossibly, Emma's screams began to quiet. Within 2 minutes, the baby's cries had faded to hiccuping whimpers. Within 5, she was silent, her little head resting against the woman's shoulder, her body relaxing. The cabin, which had been tense with frustration, seemed to exhale collectively. Passengers turned back to their books, laptops, movies. The crisis was over. Logan stared at her, stunned. His throat was raw. His face was wet with tears. "How did you—" "She had gas," the woman said softly, still swaying. "You can tell by the way she pulls her legs up when she cries. The humming sometimes helps. The vibration is soothing, and she just needed a different hold, more upright, so the pressure could release." She glanced at Logan, and her expression was kind, understanding. "You're doing fine. Babies are hard." Logan's throat tightened. He wanted to argue, wanted to say, "No, I'm not doing fine. I'm barely surviving. I just tried to give my daughter to a stranger." But the words wouldn't come. The woman smiled gently. "Can I sit with you for a bit? Make sure she stays settled?" Logan nodded, unable to speak. The businessman beside him grumbled but shifted to let the woman take the aisle seat. She sat down, still holding Emma, still swaying slightly in her seat. "I'm Audrey," she said quietly. "Logan." His voice came out hoarse, broken. They sat in silence for a moment. Emma's breathing evened out, her tiny body going slack with sleep. Her little fist curled against Audrey's sweater, holding on. "First time flying alone with her?" Audrey asked. Logan nodded. "First time doing a lot of things alone with her." Audrey didn't pry, didn't push. She just sat there, holding his daughter with a gentleness that made Logan's chest ache. After a few minutes, she asked, "How old?" 8 months. "She's beautiful," Audrey said, looking down at Emma's sleeping face. Logan followed her gaze. Emma did look beautiful now that she was calm, peaceful, her long lashes resting against her round cheeks, her rosebud mouth slightly open. "I'm supposed to be her dad," Logan said quietly. "I'm supposed to know how to do this." "No one knows how to do this," Audrey said. "Not at first. Not really. You just figure it out as you go. And sometimes you need help. That's not a failure. That's just being human." "You seem like you know," Logan said. Audrey's smile turned sad. "I used to have a daughter, Lily. She'd be 10 now." The past tense hung in the air like a weight. Logan's heart clenched. He didn't know what to say. "I lost her 4 years ago," Audrey continued, her voice soft but steady, like she'd told this story before, but it still hurt every time. "Leukemia. She was 6 when she was diagnosed. We fought for 2 years. Chemo, radiation, clinical trials, experimental treatments. We tried everything. She paused, her hand still rubbing gentle circles on Emma's back. But in the end, nothing was enough. She passed away 2 months after her 8th birthday. "I'm so sorry," Logan whispered. "Thank you." Audrey looked down at Emma, and something in her expression shifted, softness mixed with old grief. "I spent 2 years in and out of hospitals, learned every trick to soothe a sick, hurting child. The nurses taught me. Other parents in the oncology ward taught me. You learn fast when your kid is in pain, and all you want in the world is to make them comfortable, even for a few minutes." Logan felt his throat close up. Here he was, falling apart over a colicky baby, and this woman had lost her child, had watched her suffer and die. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Audrey said. "I don't talk about her much. Most people don't know how to respond, and I don't want to make them uncomfortable. But being around babies—" She glanced at Emma. "It helps, sometimes. Reminds me of the good parts. The baby smell, the tiny fingers, the way they hold on to you like you're their whole world. Lily was like that when she was little." "Is that why you came over?" Logan asked. When I lost it." Audrey met his eyes. "I came over because you looked like you were drowning. And I know what that feels like. When Lily was in treatment, there were days I felt like I was drowning in grief and fear and exhaustion. Days I thought I couldn't take one more step, couldn't survive one more minute. But somehow you do. You keep going, because you have to." They sat together for the rest of the flight. Audrey held Emma almost the entire time, only handing her back when the captain announced their descent into Minneapolis. By then, Emma was awake but calm, her big brown eyes blinking up at Audrey like she'd found her new favorite person. "Thank you," Logan said as they prepared to land, his voice thick. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't—" "You would have figured it out," Audrey interrupted gently. "But you don't have to do everything alone. That's what I learned. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's survival." They deplaned together. Logan fumbled with the car seat and diaper bag, and Audrey helped without being asked, carrying the stroller down the jet bridge. They walked through the terminal side by side, Emma content in Logan's arms now, and Logan realized he didn't want this to end. Didn't want to say goodbye to this woman who'd saved him when he was at his lowest. "Are you—" He hesitated, heart pounding. "Are you staying in Minneapolis?" "Just for the weekend," Audrey said. "Visiting an old friend from nursing school. She moved here a few years ago." "Maybe—" Logan took a breath. "Maybe we could get coffee. Before you leave? I'd like to say thank you properly, and Emma seems to like you." He tried for a smile. "She has good taste." Audrey laughed, a soft, genuine sound. "I'd like that." They exchanged numbers in baggage claim, Logan typing Audrey's contact into his phone with one hand, while balancing Emma with the other. Audrey's friend was waiting for her near the exit, a tall woman with short blonde hair who waved enthusiastically. "That's Rachel," Audrey said. "I should go. Text me, okay?" "I will," Logan promised. Audrey reached out and gently touched Emma's cheek. "You take care of your daddy, okay, sweet girl? He's doing his best." Then she looked at Logan. "You really are, you know, doing your best." Logan's vision blurred again, but this time with something other than despair. "Thank you." Audrey smiled and walked away, her friend pulling her into a hug. Logan watched her go, Emma babbling softly in his arms, and for the first time in months, he felt something other than fear and exhaustion. He felt hope. His mother was waiting outside in her old grey sedan, the same car she'd been driving for 15 years. Rebecca Baker looked older than Logan remembered, her hair more grey than brown now, her face lined with exhaustion. but her expression softened when she saw Emma. "There's my grandbaby," she said, her voice warmer than Logan had heard in years. She took Emma from Logan's arms with surprising gentleness. "Look at you. You're perfect, aren't you?" Emma grabbed at Rebecca's glasses, and Rebecca laughed. Logan couldn't remember the last time he'd heard his mother laugh. "Come on," Rebecca said, settling Emma into the car seat Logan had installed in the back. "Let's get you both home." The drive to Rebecca's house was quiet. Logan stared out the window at familiar streets, landmarks he'd grown up with, the old grocery store where he'd shoplifted candy as a kid and gotten caught, the park where he'd broken his arm falling off the swings, the high school where he'd spent 4 years desperate to escape. Rebecca's house was exactly as he remembered, a small 2-bedroom ranch on the edge of town, the paint peeling, the lawn overgrown. She'd never had time or money for maintenance. Inside it smelled like his childhood, coffee and cinnamon candles, old books and laundry detergent. The furniture was the same. The photos on the wall were the same. Like time had stopped the day Logan left for college. Rebecca had set up the spare bedroom with a borrowed crib and changing table. "Mrs. Patterson next door lent them to me," she said. "Her grandkids are too old for them now. You'll stay as long as you need. We'll figure it out." Her tone was brisk, practical, but there was an underlying kindness Logan hadn't expected. Maybe having a grandchild had softened her, or maybe she'd just gotten better at showing she cared. That first week, Logan barely slept. Emma was adjusting to the new environment, new room, new smells, new sounds, and woke up every 2 hours screaming. Rebecca helped when she could, but she worked full-time as a nurse at a local clinic, and her shifts were 12 hours long. Mostly it was Logan and Emma navigating the days in the small house, trying to find a rhythm. Logan applied for jobs online during Emma's naps, updated his LinkedIn profile, reached out to former colleagues, scoured local job boards. He had a few promising leads: a software company in downtown Minneapolis looking for a senior developer, a startup looking for contract work, a consulting firm seeking engineers for short-term projects. He had a phone interview with the software company on Wednesday. It went well. The hiring manager seemed impressed with Logan's experience, his portfolio. "We'd love to bring you in for an in-person interview," she said. "How's next Tuesday?" "That works," Logan said, relief flooding through him. The in-person interview was at their downtown office, a sleek glass building filled with open workspaces and modern furniture. Logan wore his only suit, left Emma with his mother, and tried to project confidence he didn't feel. The interview panel consisted of 3 people: the hiring manager, a team lead, and someone from HR. They asked technical questions, behavioral questions, questions about his previous work. Logan answered smoothly, drawing on years of experience. Then came the question he'd been dreading. "I see there's a gap in your recent employment," the HR rep said, glancing at his resume. "Can you explain that?" Logan had prepared for this, practiced his answer. "I took time off for family reasons. My daughter was born, and I wanted to be present for those early months. But I'm ready to get back to work now, fully committed." "And childcare?" the hiring manager asked. "You mentioned you're a single parent. Do you have reliable childcare arranged?" Logan hesitated for just a second. "Yes, my mother lives here in Minneapolis. She's helping out." The panel exchanged glances. Logan's stomach sank. "We appreciate your honesty," the hiring manager said, "but we need someone who can be available for occasional late hours, weekend deployments when necessary. With a young child, would that be possible?" "Absolutely," Logan said, though he had no idea if it was true. "I'm very committed. I won't let my personal situation affect my work." They wrapped up the interview shortly after, shook his hand, said they'd be in touch. Logan left the building knowing he wouldn't get the job. The rejection email came 3 days later. Thank you for your interest, but we've decided to pursue other candidates whose availability better aligns with our needs. Logan had 4 more interviews over the next 2 weeks. Each one followed the same pattern: initial interest, technical competence, then the question about childcare, about availability, about commitment, then the polite rejection. By the end of the month, Logan was out of options. His savings were nearly gone. He couldn't afford rent anywhere, couldn't afford daycare, couldn't even afford to buy his own groceries. He was completely dependent on his mother's generosity, living in her house, eating her food, using her utilities. He was 32 years old and felt like a teenager again. On Friday evening, as Logan was feeding Emma in the kitchen, his phone buzzed. A text from Audrey. "How's it going?" Logan stared at the message. He'd thought about texting her dozens of times over the past 2 weeks, but hadn't. What would he say? "Hi, remember me, the guy who had a breakdown on a plane? Want to get coffee and listen to me complain about my failing life?" But seeing her message, he felt that flicker of hope again. He typed back, "Surviving, barely. How's Chicago?" The response came quickly. "Busy, miss Minneapolis though. I'm coming back this weekend to visit Rachel. Coffee on Saturday?" Logan's heart jumped. Yes, definitely yes. They met at a small cafe in downtown Minneapolis called The Grind. It was the kind of place Sarah would have loved. Exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, indie music playing softly over the speakers. Logan arrived early with Emma in her carrier, ordered a coffee he couldn't really afford, and sat at a corner table trying not to look as nervous as he felt. Audrey walked in right on time. She wore a blue blouse and jeans, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. When she saw Logan, her face lit up with a genuine smile that made his chest ache. "Hi," she said, approaching the table. Emma, who had been dozing in her carrier, perked up when she heard Audrey's voice and reached out her tiny hands. "She remembers you," Logan said, amazed. "Smart baby." Audrey gently touched Emma's hand, and Emma grabbed her finger, holding on tight like she had on the plane. Audrey ordered a latte and a scone, then sat down across from Logan. For a moment they just looked at each other. Then Audrey said, "You look better than you did on the plane." Logan laughed, a real laugh. "That's a low bar." "How are you really?" Audrey asked, and the way she said it, with genuine concern, not polite small talk, made Logan want to tell her everything. So he did. He told her about Sarah's note, about losing his job, about the interviews that went nowhere, about living with his mother and feeling like a failure, about lying awake at night wondering how he was going to provide for Emma, how he was going to give her any kind of decent life. The words poured out of him, weeks of bottled-up fear and frustration, and Audrey just listened, didn't interrupt, didn't offer empty platitudes, just listened with those warm, understanding eyes. When Logan finally ran out of words, Audrey reached across the table and took his hand. "You're not a failure," she said firmly. "You're here, you're trying, you haven't given up. That's not failure. That's strength." "I handed my baby to a stranger on a plane," Logan said. "You were overwhelmed and you recognized you needed help," Audrey corrected. "That doesn't make you a bad parent. It makes you human. Do you know how many parents feel exactly what you felt but don't admit it? You're not alone in this, Logan." Logan wanted to believe her, desperately wanted to believe her. They talked for 2 hours. The conversation flowed easily, comfortably. Audrey told him more about her life in Chicago. She was a pediatric nurse at a children's hospital, which explained why she'd been so good with Emma. She specialized in oncology, working with kids like Lily had been. "It's hard," she admitted. "Some days I come home and cry for an hour. But it also feels like I'm doing something meaningful, like Lily's fight wasn't for nothing." She told him about moving to Chicago after Lily died, about packing up their house in Ohio, selling everything that reminded her of her daughter's illness, and starting fresh in a city where no one knew her story. "I couldn't stay," she said. Every corner of that house had memories. Her room, the kitchen where we celebrated when she went into remission the first time, the bathroom where I found her unconscious when the cancer came back. I needed somewhere new, somewhere I could breathe. Logan told her about his childhood, about his absent father and exhausted mother, about raising himself and Derek, about frozen dinners and empty afternoons, about promising himself his kids would have better. "I wanted to be the dad I never had," he said, "present, involved, loving. But I don't know how to do this. I don't have a model for it." "You're figuring it out," Audrey said. "Every day you show up for Emma, you're being the dad you wanted. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real." Emma started fussing in her carrier, and Audrey asked, "May I?" Logan nodded, and Audrey lifted Emma out with practiced ease, settling the baby on her lap. Emma immediately calmed, grabbing at Audrey's necklace with fascination. Watching them together, Logan felt something shift in his chest, a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. They met again the next day, and the day after that. Sunday afternoon, they went to a park near Rebecca's house. It was a warm June day, the kind of day that makes Minnesota winters feel worth enduring. They sat on a bench while Emma napped in her stroller, and Audrey asked about Sarah. "Do you still love her?" The question was gentle, not accusatory. Logan thought about it. "I don't know. I loved who I thought she was, but I'm not sure I ever really knew her. The woman I married wouldn't abandon her child. So either I was completely wrong about who she was, or she changed into someone I don't recognize. Either way, the person I loved doesn't exist anymore." "Do you think she'll come back?" "No," Logan said. "I used to hope she would, that she'd realize she made a mistake and come home, but I don't hope for that anymore. Emma deserves better than a mother who left her. We both do." Audrey reached over and took his hand. They sat like that for a long time, hand in hand, watching the clouds drift overhead while Emma slept peacefully. "I have to go back to Chicago tomorrow," Audrey said eventually. Logan's heart sank. "I know. But I'll be back. Rachel and I try to meet up once a month." "I'd like to see you again," Logan said. "When you come back, if you want to." Audrey smiled. "I want to." As they walked back to Rebecca's house, Emma, awake now and babbling happily in Logan's arms, Audrey said quietly, "Have you thought about moving to Chicago?" Logan looked at her, surprised. "Chicago? The job market is bigger there. More opportunities and—" She paused. "And I'm there." "We barely know each other," Logan said, though his heart was racing. "I know," Audrey said, "but I feel like I know you better after 3 days than I know people I've worked with for years, and I think you feel the same." Logan couldn't deny it. There was something about Audrey that felt right, easy, like they'd known each other for years instead of weeks. "What if I can't find a job there either?" Logan asked. "Then we figure it out together," Audrey said. "I have an extra bedroom. You could stay with me while you job hunt. No pressure, no expectations, just a chance." Logan stopped walking, looked at this woman who'd appeared in his life when he was at his absolute lowest, who'd shown him kindness when he desperately needed it, who looked at his daughter with such tenderness it made his chest ache. "Okay," he said, "let's try it." Audrey's face broke into a wide smile. "Yeah? Yeah." They stood there on the sidewalk, Emma between them, and Logan felt something he hadn't felt in months. He felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. 2 weeks later, Logan packed everything he and Emma owned into Rebecca's car. His mother drove them to the bus station. Logan couldn't afford a plane ticket this time. The bus ride to Chicago would take 8 hours, but it was $50 instead of $300. Rebecca hugged him goodbye in the parking lot. "You call me when you get there," she said, "and send pictures of Emma." "I will," Logan promised. "And Logan?" Rebecca held his shoulders, looked him in the eye. "You're a good father. Don't let anyone tell you different." Logan's throat tightened. "Thanks, Mom." The bus ride was long and uncomfortable. Emma slept for most of it, mercifully, waking only for feedings. Logan stared out the window at endless Midwest highways and wondered if he was making a huge mistake. Moving to a new city for a woman he'd known for 3 weeks. Uprooting Emma again, betting everything on hope and instinct. But when the bus pulled into Chicago's Union Station and Logan saw Audrey waiting at the arrival area, holding a sign that said Logan and Emma with a big smiley face, all his doubts melted away. "Welcome to Chicago," Audrey said, pulling him into a hug. She smelled like vanilla and coffee, like comfort. Audrey's apartment was in a neighborhood called Lincoln Park, a 2-bedroom on the 3rd floor of an old brownstone building. It was cozy and bright, filled with plants and bookshelves and photos. Logan noticed she didn't have any pictures of Lily displayed, and he wondered if that was intentional, too painful to see every day. "The 2nd bedroom is yours," Audrey said, leading him down a short hallway. The room was small but clean, with a double bed, a dresser, and space for Emma's portable crib. "It's not much, but it's perfect," Logan said. "Thank you for all of this." "You don't have to thank me," Audrey said. "I want to help." That first week in Chicago, Audrey showed Logan around the city. They took Emma to Millennium Park, Navy Pier, the Lincoln Park Zoo. Audrey introduced him to her favorite coffee shops and restaurants. She helped him set up a Chicago library card, showed him where the best grocery stores were, explained the train system. More importantly, she helped him job hunt. She looked over his resume, helped him tailor it for Chicago companies. She connected him with people in her network, a friend's husband who worked in tech, a former colleague whose brother ran a startup. She watched Emma while Logan went to interviews, and she never complained, never made him feel like a burden. Logan had 4 interviews in the first week. 1 for a mid-sized tech company downtown, 1 for a startup in the West Loop, 1 for a consulting firm, and 1 for a hospital system that needed an IT specialist. The hospital interview was Audrey's suggestion. She'd heard through work they were hiring. The hospital job paid less than the others, but it came with on-site childcare, a daycare right in the building where employees got a discount. Logan's interview was with the IT director, a friendly guy named Marcus who had 3 kids of his own. "We need someone who can manage our patient data systems, implement security protocols, and train staff on new software," Marcus explained. "Hours are mostly 9 to 5, but occasional weekend or evening work for system updates. We try to give advance notice when possible." "I can do that," Logan said. "I have extensive experience with data management and security." "And you have a daughter?" Marcus asked, glancing at Logan's resume where he'd listed childcare needs. Logan tensed. Here it comes. The deal breaker. "Yes, 8 months old, but I have reliable care arrangements." "Our daycare is excellent," Marcus interrupted. "My youngest is there now. They take infants starting at 6 weeks. If you're interested, I can set up a tour." Logan stared at him. "Really?" Marcus smiled. "We're a hospital. We understand that our employees have families. Work-life balance isn't just a buzzword here. It's policy." Logan got the job offer 2 days later. It was for less money than he'd made in Seattle, but it was stable. It came with good benefits, and the childcare subsidy made it financially viable. He accepted immediately. He started the following Monday. The daycare was everything Marcus had promised. Clean, bright, with caring staff and age-appropriate activities. Emma cried the first day when Logan dropped her off, But the lead teacher, a woman named Patricia, was patient and gentle. "Give it a week," she said. "She'll adjust." Patricia was right. By the end of the week, Emma was smiling when they arrived at daycare, reaching for Patricia and the other caregivers. She loved the other babies, loved the toys and books and songs. For the first time since Sarah left, Logan felt like he could breathe. He could work without constant panic about Emma, could focus on his projects without his phone in his hand, waiting for an emergency call. Living with Audrey felt natural in a way that surprised him. They fell into a routine. Logan would handle Emma's morning routine and drop-off. Audrey would pick her up in the evenings since her shifts ended earlier. They'd cook dinner together, take turns with bedtime. They'd sit on the couch after Emma was asleep and talk for hours about everything and nothing. 6 weeks into living together, Logan took Audrey out on a proper date. He'd saved up from his first 2 paychecks, hired a babysitter, Patricia's daughter, a high school student who adored Emma, and made reservations at a nice Italian restaurant Audrey had mentioned wanting to try. Audrey wore a dark green dress that made her eyes look even more beautiful. Logan wore his suit, the one he'd worn to job interviews. They sat across from each other at a candle-lit table, and Logan felt like a teenager on his first date. Nervous, excited, terrified of screwing this up. "I need to tell you something," Logan said after they'd ordered. Audrey looked at him, concerned. "Okay." "I'm falling in love with you," Logan said. "I know it's fast. I know we said no pressure, no expectations, but I can't pretend anymore. I think about you constantly, when I'm at work, when I'm with Emma, when I'm falling asleep at night. You've changed my life, Audrey. You've given me hope when I had none, and I don't want to hide how I feel." Audrey's eyes filled with tears. "Logan, you don't have to say it back," Logan rushed to say. "I just needed you to know." Audrey reached across the table and took both his hands. "I fell in love with you on that plane," she said. "The moment I saw you falling apart and trying so hard to hold it together, the moment I held Emma and watched you look at her like she was your whole world. I've been in love with you this entire time, and I've been terrified to admit it." Logan's heart felt too big for his chest. Why terrified? "Because loving someone means risking loss," Audrey said. "And I've lost enough. I lost Lily, lost my marriage. Her father couldn't handle her illness. He left when she was 7. I lost the life I thought I'd have, and the idea of loving you and Emma and then losing you." Her voice broke. Logan stood up, moved around the table, and pulled Audrey to her feet. He held her close, right there in the restaurant with other diners watching. "You're not going to lose us," he whispered. "I promise you, Audrey, you're not going to lose us." They went home that night and made love for the first time. It was slow and tender and felt like coming home. Afterward, they lay tangled together in Audrey's bed, and Logan traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "Move in with me," he said. "Officially, not roommates, partners." "I thought we already were," Audrey said, smiling against his chest. "I mean it. I want this. You and me and Emma. I want us to be a family." Audrey lifted her head to look at him. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." "Then yes," Audrey said. "Yes, I want that too." 3 months later, they started looking for a bigger apartment. Audrey's place was cozy but cramped for 3 people. They wanted space for Emma to play, a second bedroom for when she got older, maybe even a small balcony. They found a place in a neighborhood called Andersonville, a bright 2-bedroom with hardwood floors, big windows, and a small balcony that overlooked a tree-lined street. It was more expensive, but with both their incomes combined, they could afford it comfortably. Moving day was chaotic. Logan's mother flew in from Minneapolis to help and to see Emma. Rebecca held her granddaughter and teared up. "She's gotten so big." "She's growing fast," Logan agreed. Rebecca watched Logan and Audrey work together, unpacking boxes and assembling furniture, and she pulled Logan aside while Audrey was distracted with Emma. "She's good for you," Rebecca said. "I know," Logan said. "Don't screw it up." Logan laughed. "I'll try not to." The first night in the new apartment, after all the boxes were unpacked and Rebecca had gone back to her hotel, Logan and Audrey collapsed on the couch. Emma was asleep in her new room. They'd painted it a soft yellow with white clouds on the ceiling, and she'd been fascinated by the clouds, staring up at them until she drifted off. "We have a home," Logan said, looking around at their space, their furniture, their photos on the walls, their life together. "Yeah," Audrey said, curling into his side. "We do." "A year ago I thought my life was over," Logan admitted. "I was on that plane thinking I'd failed at everything. And now you have everything," Audrey finished. "Now I have everything," Logan agreed. He kissed her forehead. "I love you. I love you too." 6 months later, on a crisp autumn day in Lincoln Park, Logan proposed. They'd gone to the same park where they'd sat on a bench during Audrey's weekend visit to Minneapolis, where they'd first talked about him moving to Chicago. Emma was 14 months old now, toddling around on unsteady legs, chasing fallen leaves with delighted squeals. Audrey sat on the bench, watching Emma with that soft smile Logan loved so much. He knelt down beside the bench, pulled out the ring he'd been saving for, a simple diamond on a gold band, nothing extravagant but chosen with care, and said her name. Audrey turned to look at him, saw the ring. Her eyes went wide. "Audrey Walker," Logan said, his voice steady despite his pounding heart. "You saved me when I was drowning. You gave me hope when I had none. You loved my daughter when her own mother couldn't. You showed me what real partnership looks like, what real love looks like. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to raise Emma together, and maybe more kids if you want them. I want to grow old with you. Will you marry me?" Audrey's face was streaming with tears. "Yes," she said. "Yes, absolutely yes." Logan slipped the ring onto her finger, and Audrey pulled him up into a fierce kiss. Emma toddled over, curious about the commotion, and they scooped her up between them. She laughed and grabbed at Audrey's ring, making them both laugh too. "We're getting married, Emma," Logan told his daughter. "Audrey's going to be your mama." Emma babbled something that sounded like mama, and both Logan and Audrey froze. "Did she just—" Audrey started. "Mama," Emma repeated, patting Audrey's cheek. Audrey burst into fresh tears. "Oh my God! Logan, did you hear—" "I heard," Logan said, his own vision blurring. She knows you're her mama." They stood there in the park, the three of them wrapped together, and Logan felt a completeness he'd never known. This was his family, this was his life, and it was more beautiful than anything he could have imagined. They got married 6 months later in the same park. It was April, the trees just starting to bloom, the weather finally warm after a brutal Chicago winter. They kept the ceremony small, just close friends and family. Rebecca flew in from Minneapolis, looking proud in a lavender dress. Derek came with his wife. Rachel, Audrey's friend, served as maid of honor. A co-worker of Logan's from the hospital stood as his best man. Emma was the flower girl, 17 months old and barely steady on her feet. She wore a white dress with a pink sash, and Rebecca helped her toddle down the makeshift aisle, scattering petals everywhere, on the ground, in the air, in her own hair. The small crowd of guests laughed with delight. Logan stood at the altar they'd set up under a flowering tree, watching Audrey walk toward him. She wore a simple ivory dress, her hair loose with small flowers woven through it. She looked radiant. When she reached him, she took his hands and smiled with such joy that Logan's chest ached. The officiant, a friend of Audrey's from the hospital, led them through the ceremony. When it came time for vows, Logan went first. "Audrey," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "A year and a half ago I was on a plane, falling apart, convinced I was failing at the only thing that mattered, being a father to Emma. You stood up and walked toward me when anyone else would have looked away. You took my daughter from my arms and you calmed her, and in doing so, you calmed me. You saved me that day. But more than that, you taught me that asking for help isn't weakness, that it's okay to not have all the answers. That love is showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You show up every single day for me and for Emma. You've given us a home, a family, a future I never thought we'd have. I promise to show up for you the same way, to love you through the hard days and the beautiful days, to be your partner in every sense of the word, to honor Lily's memory and the incredible mother you were to her, and to be grateful every day that you chose to open your heart again. I love you. I will always love you." Audrey was crying by the time he finished. She took a shaky breath and began her own vows. "Logan, when I saw you on that plane, I saw someone who loved his child so much it was breaking him, and it reminded me of how much I'd loved Lily, how much I'd have done anything to save her. I'd spent 4 years after her death feeling like my capacity to love had died with her, like I'd never feel that kind of connection again. But you and Emma changed that. You taught me that the heart doesn't run out of room, that losing Lily didn't mean my heart was broken forever. It just meant there was space for more love, different love, but just as real. Logan, you let me be a mother again. You trusted me with your daughter when you had every reason not to trust anyone. That trust is the most precious gift I've ever been given. I promise to honor it, to be the mother Emma deserves and the partner you deserve, to build a life with you that's full of love and laughter and honesty, to hold your hand through whatever comes next. I love you. I love Emma. I love the family we've become, and the family we'll continue to build. You're my second chance, Logan, and I will never take that for granted." There wasn't a dry eye in the small crowd. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and Logan kissed Audrey with everything he had. Their guests cheered. Emma, sitting in Rebecca's lap in the front row, clapped her tiny hands and shouted, "Mama! Dada!" making everyone laugh. The reception was in a nearby restaurant they'd rented out. Nothing fancy, just good food and good company. Logan danced with Audrey, with Emma, with his mother. He watched his new wife laugh with Rachel and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. A year ago, he'd had nothing. Now he had everything. That night, after the celebration ended, and Emma was asleep in her crib at Rebecca's hotel room, Rebecca had insisted on watching her for the wedding night. Logan and Audrey stood on their apartment balcony, looking out over the Chicago skyline. "Do you ever think about Sarah?" Audrey asked quietly. Logan considered the question. "Sometimes," he admitted. "I used to be angry that she gave up so easily, that she abandoned Emma, that she threw away what we had. Now I just feel sad for her. She's missing out on watching Emma grow up, on seeing her first steps, hearing her first words, on all these beautiful moments. I hope she's okay, wherever she is. I hope she found whatever she was looking for. But I'm glad we're here. I'm glad she left, because if she hadn't, I never would have found you." Audrey leaned her head on his shoulder. "Do you think Emma will ask about her someday?" "Probably," Logan said, "when she's older. And I'll tell her the truth, that her birth mother couldn't stay, but her real mother, you, chose her every single day." Audrey's breath hitched. Her real mother. You are, Audrey, in every way that matters. They stood there in comfortable silence, wrapped in each other, until Audrey said, "I want to have a baby with you." Logan pulled back to look at her. Yeah, I want Emma to have a sibling. I want to experience pregnancy and birth with you by my side. I want to build our family bigger, What do you think? Logan kissed her deeply. I think that sounds perfect. 8 months later, Audrey got pregnant. She and Logan cried together when the test showed positive. They told Emma, who was almost 2.5, that she was going to be a big sister. Emma seemed confused but excited, patting Audrey's still flat stomach and saying, "Baby." The pregnancy was smooth, uncomplicated. Audrey worked up until her 8th month, then took maternity leave. Logan went to every appointment, held her hand through every ultrasound. When they found out they were having a boy, they cried again. "A son," Logan said, awed. "What should we name him?" Audrey asked. They debated for weeks. Finally, they settled on Noah. Simple, strong, meaningful. Noah James Baker. Noah was born on a snowy February morning. Audrey's labor was long, 16 hours, and Logan stayed by her side the entire time, letting her squeeze his hand until he lost feeling in his fingers, coaching her breathing, telling her how strong she was. When Noah finally arrived, red-faced and wailing, the nurse placed him on Audrey's chest, and both Audrey and Logan wept. He was perfect. 7 pounds, 5 ounces of perfect. Emma, now 2 years and 8 months old, met her baby brother that afternoon. Rebecca brought her to the hospital, and Emma approached the bed cautiously. Audrey held Noah out so Emma could see. "This is your baby brother, Noah," Audrey said softly. Emma stared at him with wide eyes. Then she reached out and gently touched his tiny fist. "My baby," she declared. "Your baby brother," Logan corrected with a laugh. Emma looked up at them seriously. "I protect him." Logan's heart melted. "Yes, sweetheart. You'll be the best big sister." They brought Noah home 3 days later. The apartment, which had felt spacious, suddenly felt cramped with a toddler and a newborn. But they made it work. Emma was fascinated by her baby brother, wanted to help with everything. She'd bring diapers, fetch bottles, sing him songs in her toddler voice. Audrey and Logan were exhausted. Noah was a terrible sleeper those first few months, but they were happy, deliriously, completely happy. When Noah was 6 months old, Logan came home from work to find Audrey crying in the kitchen. He rushed to her side, panic flooding through him. "What's wrong? Is Noah okay? Is Emma?" "They're fine," Audrey said, wiping her eyes. "They're both napping. I'm fine, I just—" She handed him an envelope. Official-looking, with the logo of the Lilly Foundation, a charity Audrey had started years ago to fund pediatric cancer research. Logan opened it. Inside was a letter from the Foundation's research director. "Dear Audrey, I'm writing with news that will hopefully bring you as much joy as it has brought our entire team. The research funded by the Lilly Foundation has led to a major breakthrough in treating acute lymphoblastic leukemia in children. We've developed a new treatment protocol that combines targeted therapy with reduced toxicity chemotherapy. In our trials, we've seen an 87% 5-year survival rate in cases that previously had less than 40% survival odds. We're calling it the Lilly Protocol, in honor of your daughter and the legacy of hope she left behind. Because of your foundation, because of Lilly, children who would have died will now have a chance to live. Full lives, beautiful lives. Lilly's fight wasn't in vain. She's saving lives, Audrey. Thank you for making this possible." Logan looked up from the letter to find Audrey sobbing. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as she shook. "She's saving lives," Audrey choked out. "Logan, kids are going to live because of her, because of Lilly." "She'd be so proud of you," Logan said, his own voice breaking. "So incredibly proud." They stood there together, holding each other, and Logan thought about how much life could change, how pain and loss could transform into purpose, how Lily's short life had mattered in ways Audrey might never fully know, how grief could coexist with joy, how old wounds could heal even as they left scars. That evening, After Emma and Noah were both asleep, Logan and Audrey sat on the couch looking at photos on Audrey's phone. For the first time since Logan had known her, Audrey pulled out photos of Lily, a beautiful little girl with Audrey's smile and bright, intelligent eyes. Photos of her before the cancer, playing at a park, blowing out birthday candles, dressed as a princess for Halloween. Photos during treatment, bald and thin but still smiling, holding stuffed animals in a hospital bed. Photos from her 8th birthday party, held in the hospital 2 months before she died, surrounded by nurses and family, wearing a crown, looking tired but happy. She was beautiful, Logan said softly. She was, Audrey agreed. She was so smart, Logan. Even when she was sick, she was curious about everything. She'd ask the doctors a million questions about her treatment, wanted to understand every medication, every procedure. She told me once that she wanted to be a doctor when she grew up, so she could help other kids like her. Audrey's voice broke. She would have been an amazing doctor. Logan kissed Audrey's temple. She's helping kids now. The Lily Protocol. Her legacy is saving lives. I know, Audrey whispered. I just wish she could know. I wish I could tell her. Maybe she does know, Logan said. Maybe wherever she is, she knows. Audrey leaned into him, and they sat like that for a long time, honoring Lily's memory together. A few months later, Emma turned 3. They threw her a birthday party at a nearby park, invited kids from her daycare, some of Logan and Audrey's friends who had children. Emma wore a princess dress and a tiara, ran around with her friends, ate too much cake and laughed until she got the hiccups. Noah, now 8 months old, sat in Audrey's lap and watched the chaos with wide eyes, occasionally reaching for cake and getting his hand gently redirected. Logan took photos of everything. Emma blowing out candles, Emma opening presents, Emma with frosting all over her face. That evening, after Emma had finally crashed from her sugar high and was asleep in her room, Logan uploaded the photos to their shared album. 3 years old, Audrey said, scrolling through the pictures. Remember when she was this tiny screaming baby on a plane? Logan laughed. How could I forget? You were so lost. We both were, Logan corrected, but we found each other. Audrey looked at him with those warm hazel eyes. Best flight of my life. Mine too. Over the next 2 years, they settled into the beautiful chaos of family life. Emma started preschool and came home every day with stories about her friends and paintings she'd made. Noah learned to walk, then run, then climb everything in sight. He was fearless in a way that gave Logan heart attacks, scaling furniture, leaping off playground equipment, convinced he was invincible. Logan got promoted at work to senior IT manager, which came with more responsibility, but also better pay and more flexibility. Audrey became head nurse in her unit, leading a team of nurses in the pediatric oncology ward. They were busy, constantly juggling work schedules and childcare and household responsibilities, but they made it work. They supported each other, picked up slack when the other was overwhelmed, communicated openly about stress and needs. They had hard days. Days when the kids were sick and cranky and neither of them had slept. Days when work was demanding and they barely saw each other. Days when old grief resurfaced for Audrey and she needed space to cry. Days when Logan felt the ghost of his old inadequacy, worried he wasn't doing enough, being enough. But they also had beautiful days, weekend mornings making pancakes together while Emma and Noah helped by making a mess. Family trips to the zoo, the aquarium, the children's museum. Bedtime stories with both kids piled into one bed. Date nights when they'd hire a babysitter and go out like they did when they were first dating, talking for hours over dinner. When Emma was 5 and Noah was 3, Audrey got pregnant again. It was unexpected. They'd talked about maybe having a third child eventually, but hadn't been actively trying. When Audrey saw the positive test, she called Logan at work. "I'm pregnant," she said when he answered. Logan almost dropped his phone. "What? Are you sure? I took 3 tests. I'm sure." "Oh my God," Logan said. "Audrey, another baby." "Are you happy?" Audrey asked, and he could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "I'm thrilled," Logan said honestly. "Are you?" "I'm terrified," Audrey admitted. 3 kids, Logan? 3. We're going to be outnumbered." Logan laughed. "We'll figure it out. We always do." They told Emma and Noah together that evening. Emma, now in kindergarten and very much a know-it-all, asked a million questions. "How did the baby get in your belly? When will it come out? Can I pick the name? Will it be a boy or a girl? Can I hold it?" Noah, only 3, seemed less interested. "Can I have a cookie?" he asked. When they found out they were having a girl, Emma burst into tears of joy. "A sister," she sobbed. "I always wanted a sister." "What about me?" Noah asked, offended. "You're my brother," Emma said, with the patience of someone explaining something obvious to a small child. "That's different." They couldn't agree on a name for months. Logan liked Sophia. Audrey liked Grace. Emma wanted to name the baby Princess Elsa. Then one evening, Emma climbed into Audrey's lap, now very round with pregnancy, and asked about Lily. Emma had seen photos of Lily on Audrey's phone. Audrey had started sharing them more, talking about her first daughter when it felt natural. Emma knew she had a big sister in heaven, that Audrey had been a mama before she was Emma's mama. "What was Lily like?" Emma asked. Audrey smiled. "She was smart and brave. She loved reading and butterflies. She had a laugh that could light up a room. She fought so hard when she was sick, Emma. She never gave up." Emma thought about this seriously. "Mama, can we name the baby Lily, so she's always with us?" Audrey's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Logan, who nodded. "I think that's a beautiful idea, sweetheart," Audrey said, so they named their 3rd child Lily Grace Baker. She was born on a warm June morning, 3 weeks before her due date. Labor was fast this time. Audrey barely made it to the hospital. 4 hours from first contraction to Lily's arrival. She came out screaming, a full head of dark hair, looking furious at the world. "She's perfect," Logan said, tears streaming down his face. "She's Lily," Audrey whispered, holding their daughter. "Our Lily." Emma and Noah met their sister that afternoon. Emma was gentle and awestruck, touching Lily's tiny hand with reverence. Noah was less impressed. "She's loud," he observed, "and small." "You were small once too," Logan reminded him. "I'm big now," Noah said proudly. Life with 3 kids was chaos, beautiful, exhausting chaos. Their 2-bedroom apartment was bursting at the seams. Emma and Lily shared one room, Noah had the other. Logan and Audrey's bedroom was basically storage for baby gear. They started seriously looking at houses in the suburbs, places with yards and multiple bedrooms, and space for the kids to spread out. They found a house in Evanston, a Chicago suburb with good schools and tree-lined streets. 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a backyard with a swing set. It needed work. The kitchen was outdated, the bathrooms needed updating, but it was structurally sound and within their budget. They made an offer, went through the nerve-wracking process of inspections and appraisals, and closed 3 months before Lily's first birthday. Moving day was absolute chaos. Emma, now 6, tried to help, but mostly got in the way. Noah, almost 4, thought the empty house was a perfect place to run in circles screaming. Lily, 10 months old and newly mobile, crawled everywhere, trying to eat anything she found on the floor. Rebecca flew in again to help, and Rachel drove over with coffee and donuts and extra hands. But when they finally got everything unpacked, when the kids were asleep in their new rooms, and Logan and Audrey collapsed in their new living room. It felt like an achievement. They'd done it. They owned a house, had 3 beautiful kids, had built a life together that was so far beyond anything Logan had imagined that day on the plane. "We made it," Logan said, echoing words he'd said years before in a different park. "We did," Audrey agreed. The years that followed were full. Emma thrived in school. She was top of her class, a natural leader, already talking about being a scientist when she grew up. Noah was the wild child, always climbing trees and coming home with scraped knees and bruised elbows, but with a heart of gold. Lily was their surprise, their joy, a happy baby who grew into a cheerful toddler who loved books and music. Logan's career continued to grow. He was promoted again, this time to director of IT for the entire hospital system. It was demanding, but he made sure to maintain boundaries. Family dinner every night when possible. Weekends reserved for the kids. No checking email after bedtime. Audrey continued her work in pediatric oncology. It was hard, heartbreaking work. She lost patients, held parents as they said goodbye to their children. But she also saw miracles. Kids who went into remission, who finished treatment and rang the survivor bell, who came back years later healthy and thriving. And because of the Lily protocol, more kids survived than ever before. Every success felt like honoring her first daughter's memory. On what would have been Lily's 15th birthday, Audrey took the day off work. Logan did too. They dropped the kids at school and daycare, then drove to a park where they'd scattered Lily's ashes years before, back when Audrey lived in Ohio. They sat on a bench and talked about her, about what she might have been like at 15, what kind of teenager she would have been. "She'd have been amazing," Logan said. "Like you." "I hope she knows," Audrey said, "that I didn't forget her, that I'll never forget her, but that I also found room to love again." "She knows," Logan said with certainty, "and she's glad. I know she's glad you're happy." They sat there for a long time, holding hands, remembering. When Emma was 8, she came home from school with a project assignment. "We have to interview our parents about how they met," she announced at dinner, "and write a story about it. Can you tell me how you and Daddy met, Mama?" Logan and Audrey exchanged glances. They'd told the kids pieces of the story, that Logan had been on a plane with baby Emma, that Audrey had helped when Emma was crying, that they'd become friends and then fallen in love. But they'd never told the whole story, never talked about Sarah, about Logan's breakdown, about how desperate and broken he'd been. "It's a long story," Audrey said. "I have time," Emma said. "The project isn't due until Friday." So that evening, after Noah and Lily were asleep, Logan and Audrey sat with Emma on the couch and told her everything. About Logan's first marriage to Sarah, about how Sarah had left, about Logan losing his job and moving to Minneapolis, about the flight where he'd reached his breaking point, about Audrey stepping in to help. Emma listened with wide eyes. When they finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "So my birth mom left us?" Logan nodded. "She did. She wasn't ready to be a mother. It wasn't about you, Emma. You were perfect. She just couldn't do it." "Do you ever see her?" Emma asked. "No," Logan said. "She didn't want contact. I don't even know where she is now." Emma processed this. "Are you sad?" "Sometimes," Logan admitted. "Sad for you that you don't get to know her, but also grateful, because if she hadn't left, I never would have met Audrey, and Audrey has been your mama in every way that matters." Emma turned to Audrey. "You saved us." Audrey's eyes filled with tears. "You saved me too, sweetheart. Both of you." Emma hugged them both fiercely. "This is going to be the best project in my whole class." Emma's project, a beautifully illustrated story about a man on a plane, a crying baby, and a woman who stepped in to help, won first place in her class. She presented it at a school assembly, and Logan and Audrey sat in the audience crying with pride. The years continued to pass. Emma became a teenager, already showing signs of the brilliant, compassionate woman she'd become. Noah calmed down slightly, channeled his energy into sports, soccer and baseball and basketball, anything that involved running. Lily started kindergarten, came home every day with stories and artwork and questions about everything. Logan and Audrey celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary with a trip to Hawaii, their first vacation alone since the kids were born. Rebecca and Rachel teamed up to watch all 3 kids for a week. Logan and Audrey spent 7 days on a beach, talking and laughing and remembering why they'd fallen in love. They renewed their vows on the beach at sunset, just the 2 of them, promising again to love each other through whatever came next. On the flight home from Hawaii, Logan looked at Audrey and said, "Do you remember that plane ride, the one where we met?" "Every single day," Audrey said. "I was so lost then." "We both were," Audrey said, "but we found each other." Logan thought about that flight 13 years ago, about the moment he'd thought he was failing, when really he was about to be saved, about the stranger who became his wife, his partner, the mother of his children, about the life they'd built from the broken pieces. It wasn't the life he'd planned. It was better. It was real. It was theirs. And it all started because Audrey Walker had stood up on a plane and done something remarkable. She'd reached out her hand and refused to let him fall. Years later, when Emma was in college studying biochemistry, when Noah was in high school playing varsity soccer, when Lily was in middle school already reading at a college level, Logan and Audrey would sit on their back porch in the evenings and watch the sunset. "We did good," Audrey would say. "We did," Logan would agree. And they had. Through grief and loss, through fear and uncertainty, through moments of breaking and moments of healing, they'd built something beautiful, a family, a life, a love that was big enough to hold all the broken pieces and turn them into something whole. That's what love does. It doesn't erase the pain. It doesn't pretend the hard parts didn't happen. It just makes space for all of it, the joy and the sorrow, the triumphs and the failures, the moments of despair and the moments of hope. Logan and Audrey's love made space for Sarah's abandonment and for Lily's loss. It made space for Logan's failures and for Audrey's grief. It made space for 3 beautiful children, for careers they were proud of, for a life neither of them had expected, but both of them had chosen. And every year on the anniversary of that flight, Logan and Audrey would raise a glass and toast to the worst and best day of Logan's life, the day he hit rock bottom, the day he found his future, the day a stranger on a plane changed everything,